Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining me, the Digital Golf Doc, as today we take on a special viewer request. This viewer wanted to know what some of the limitations are about getting into the correct setup posture at address. I think this is such a fantastic question because if we don't start in the right spot, how can we ever expect ourselves to be in the right spot at initial contact when everything matters so much? And as a reminder, as a licensed physical therapist, strength and conditioning coach, and researcher educator, I'm going to bring information that you can truly trust on this topic. Instead of just demonstrating the correct setup posture for you, which you could see anywhere, on any professional golfer, anytime Thursday through Sunday that you want to flip on the TV, or on YouTube at the click of a button, I want to talk about the top 5 things I see that interfere with the player's ability to get in the right setup position. Number 5 on the list of things interfering with the player getting in the right setup position is an inability to hip hinge. So, I want to grab a club because what you see at setup posture is a hip hinge. We mean that the hips drive this movement. It's not a squat movement. We don't see players set up like this to hit a golf ball. In a hinge, we have to have posterior translation of the hips. We have to have an exact offsetting of chest moving forward. Otherwise, our center of gravity suffers and we end up with too much weight in our heels or too much weight in our toes. So, hips translate back, chest drops forward. It's only a slight hinge. We are right here. We should be strong, we should be relaxed, and our pelvis should be in a good position. One thing I found helpful is you can take a club in both hands, set it on the front of your thighs. You're simply going to slide the club down your thighs. I like to go for a midway point between where I start and the knees, and then I'll drop the club down. I might wiggle a little bit so I can settle in comfortably, and that's where we want to be. If you're really struggling with that, or if that feels awkward, you're going to see a video pop up on the screen about proper deadlift position. I love deadlifts for golfers because it's nothing but repeated hip hinging and getting strong and stable in that position. So if you struggle at address, deadlifts are something you should definitely be doing. Limitation 2 is tight hip flexors. And it's because if you go into setup posture and your hips are too tight, you're going to pull your pelvis excessively round your lower back and restrict your ability to rotate. So we want to stretch these muscles, but we want to do it in an active position, and we want to learn to control our hips because a lot of people miss that point. So I'm going to take a club because this can help you balance when you set up. One foot in front, the other foot down. This is where I want to be. And I'm sure you've seen this stretch before where you shift your hips forward until you feel a stretch here. Now the key I was talking about is if I don't control my pelvis, if I let it just do whatever it wants, I can translate way forward and feel almost no stretch at all. Instead, I've got to take my hips posterior tilt. So it's almost like you're taking your belly button and trying to aim it up toward the ceiling. You can see that movement in my pelvis. I've now stabilized my pelvis, which is another good thing to practice for the setup posture. Then I can translate my hips slightly forward, and now I already feel a stretch in this hip flexor. I like to hold for 10 seconds. After 10 seconds, I'll curl the back toes under. I'll press down like I'm going to stand up like this. Whether you stand up or not is not important. What's important is that by creating that pressure into the ground, you're giving yourself an active stretch instead of a passive stretch. We always see better results with active dynamic stretching than we do just with static stretching, which would be getting in this position and holding for an extended period of time. I like to do a 10-second stretch followed by a 5-second press, and I'll typically repeat that 5 times. Number 3 on the list, when I'm talking about things that interfere with setup posture for golfers, is poor lumbopelvic control. So if I get into a setup position, I want to be able to control how my pelvis moves. I should be able to take my hands here, arch my back, round my back, arch my back, round my back. The way you can think of this is if your hips are a bucket of water, you want to dump the water out the front, dump the water out the back. Dump it out the front, dump it out the back. You should be able to move through these two positions pretty seamlessly, or you might be lacking lumbopelvic control. If you cannot do it well, you can always practice in this position or various other positions on the ground, laying on your back, laying on your stomach, and there's plenty of drills to improve this, so if you need any of those drills, leave a comment below this video. Number 2, for the top limitations affecting golfers trying to get in their setup posture, is tightness in the lumbar extensors or lumbar erector muscles. My go-to for this is a very popular yoga move called child's pose. And for this, we'll make our way down to the mat. We're going to kneel on both knees. If you don't have great knees, it might be helpful to put a little pad under your knees. I like to drop my feet so the tops are on the ground. I'll bring my hands down next, shift my weight back, reach my hands out, and allow a roundness to develop in my lumbar spine. This is going to slowly stretch these muscles out. Again, if we want to make this movement dynamic, for this position, we're going to use the breath. So as we relax, we're going to take several deep breaths. Large inhale, large exhale. Inhale, exhale. The reason that becomes so important is because a lot of these muscles attach to your rib cage, and that large inhale is going to expand your rib cage, intensify the stretch on your lumbar extensors, help loosen those muscles up, again, with a little bit of a dynamic movement, so you can hopefully orient your pelvis the way you need to for proper setup position in the golf swing. Number 1, for limitations interfering with setup posture in the golf swing, is tight hamstrings. I'm going to make our way down to the ground here, and I'm going to give you, again, a dynamic hamstring mobility drill. Again, oftentimes, hamstring, we're just told to reach for our foot and stretch. That doesn't tend to be the best option. Instead, I'm going to sit, I'm going to put my hands behind me, and I'm going to walk my body up until I feel a little bit of tension in behind my leg. Sometimes you're going to need to tilt your toes back to feel that tension. Once you have developed that tension, you're going to let go of it by bending your knee, and then we're going to return to that tension by pressing our knee down and pulling our toes back toward us. Take the tension off, press down, put the tension on. We're going to repeat this slow and controlled for 15 repetitions, making sure to control our breathing throughout. This, for me, is the way I've been most successful adding length to clients' hamstrings. Now that you know the top limitations and how to address them so you can get into the perfect setup posture, here's how I suggest you use it. Before the next time you hit golf balls, run through every one of those exercises and drills. It's going to give you that mobility and control in the short term because you've primed yourself for it. Now, you might not keep it forever, but it's going to be improved. Then get into setup posture, and what you're going to realize is taking away all that tension is going to find a more relaxed position for you. You're going to swing easier with less restriction, and a lot of times my clients will see their speed immediately go up. Now, if it feels a little bit different, like you're not used to it and you can't control the club, that's just because you haven't yet gained the control over your newfound mobility. So stick with it, keep practicing, and I promise everything will round into form. Thanks, and good luck.